Hi everybody, I'm Tony. Have you ever wondered if you could get trapped in a quote? Most people would say there is no way I would ever get brainwashed. Yes, it's easy to think that if someone gets brainwashed, they must have their own issues to begin with. But what if I told you there was a person who had fame, fortune, and a tremendous amount of success but still got put into one of them? This person eventually ended up losing all his money, and one of his friends would later die because of everything that happened. Today's story is about the lead singer of one of Japan's biggest rock bands, XJapan. At their peak, they were massive. In Japan, they were like what Nirvana was to America. But this rock star spent 12 years trapped in a cult after being brainwashed by his own wife. So the real question is, how does someone with fame, money, and the millions of fans end up losing everything to a cult? And why would his own wife, the person he trusted the most, even do that to him? The lead singer of XJapan, Toshi, was born in 1965 in Chiba, Japan, the youngest of 3 brothers. Growing up, Toshi always felt like the odd one out. His oldest brother was good-looking, his second brother was a straight-A student. Compared to them, Toshi felt like a nobody, like he never quite measured up. After graduating high school, he moved to Tokyo with childhood friends Yoshiki. The two of them had been tight since kindergarten. Together, they formed XJapan. It's a band that basically kicked off Japan's entire visual K-rock movement. In less than 2 years, they became wildly popular and playing sold-out concert at the Tokyo Dome. Even the Prime Minister of Japan said he was a fan. Even though the band was a massive success, Toshi's life behind the scene was pure chaos. In 1992, Toshi started doing solo work while still performing with XJapan. He made his older brother his agent, but the guy was completely irresponsible. He blew company's money on clubs, parties, and whatever he wanted. It didn't just damage Toshi's reputation, it also cast a shadow over XJapan as a whole. Eventually, Toshi had no choice but to fire his brothers and bring in one of his friends to replace him. But at the end of the day, even that friendship ended in a disaster way over money issues. And just when you thought things couldn't get messier, Toshi's mom took it to a whole new level. She would invite XJapan fans to their home and show them childhood photos of Toshi and Yoshiki without their permissions. And the worst part, she actually charged them for it. It ended up being a total PR disaster for the band. To Toshi, it felt like everyone around him just saw him as a walking ATM. That's when he started to lose trust in the people around him. During that time, he felt incredibly isolated, until one woman walked into his life and filled the emptiness he had carried for years. In May of 1993, Toshi was casting the female leads for his stage production of Hamlet. Dozens of singers came in, all trying their best to impress, but one soft-spoken girl quietly caught his eyes. Her name was Kaori Moritani, a professional singer and the woman who would eventually become his wife and the person who brainwashed him. Toshi ended up casting her as the love interest in the play. Little did he know that this single decision would end up changing the rest of his life. After the show ended, Toshi went to Los Angeles for work, but Kaori kept in touch. "I'm not interested in XJapan's Toshi, I just want to know the real you." Letters like this arrived every 2 to 3 days, and slowly chipped away at Toshi's lonely heart. Soon after Toshi returned to Japan, he and Kaori officially started dating. At the time, XJapan had their eyes set on the global stage. Yoshiki pushed Toshi to improve his English, hoping the band could break into international markets. But no matter how hard he tried, Toshi felt like he could never meet expectations, and he was ashamed that he couldn't do better. That's when Kaori stepped in again, offering her support. She told him the reason he felt pressure is because he was forcing himself to do things he didn't truly enjoy. Instead, he should strip away all the makeup and costumes and just be himself. On December 31st, 1996, during XJapan's national tour, Toshi, who had always appeared with dramatic blonde hair and flamboyant outfits, walked on stage with natural black hair, no makeup, and just a plain black coat. In the world of visual K-rock, appearance is everything. So for Toshi to shed it all means only one thing. Kaori's influence was already running very deep, but her brainwash had only just begun. One day, Kaori put on some spiritual awakening music in their home, the kind of music you would expect to hear in a religious gathering. As the song played, she suddenly burst into tears, then she turned to Toshi and said, "You shouldn't be in XJapan anymore. If you are going to keep singing, it should be music that cleans your spirit, not that loud, chaotic rock stuff you are doing now." After 2 years of dating, Toshi and Kaori got married in February 1997. Less than 2 months later, he told Yoshiki, his best friend since kindergarten, that he wanted to quit the band. Yoshiki surprisingly agreed right away, but the other members, especially the guitarist Hide, were strongly against it. But Toshi was firm. He didn't want to do rock music anymore, and he told everyone that he had already made up his mind. XJapan struggled to find anyone to replace Toshi as the lead vocalist. So on September 22nd, they officially announced they were breaking up. The news came as a total shock to fans across the country. And from that moment on, Toshi cut off his ties with everyone, his bandmates, his friends, even his own family. And that marks the beginning of 12 years cult brainwashing. A few months after quitting the band, Kaori told Toshi there was a special concert he had to attend. It was being held in the basement of someone else's house. When they arrived, the same type of spiritual awakening music Kaori had previously played was echoing through the room. A dozen or so people sat with their heads lowered, listening in silence. Then the leader of the cult, a man named Masaya, appeared on the stage. He began singing along with the music, and one by one people started crying. At first, Toshi was skeptical. He thought, is this some sort of weird religion? But when he saw his wife was also crying next to him, he started to question himself instead. The concert went on for 90 minutes. When it ended, a staff member approached Toshi and said, Masaya would like to meet with you personally. Before Toshi could even respond, Kaori had already said yes for him. At the meeting, Masaya began bragging about his life story like he was straight out of an anime. A hit songwriter by 18, a multi-business owner by his early 20s, and by the age of 27, he became the youngest board member of a publicly traded company in Japan. But what really impressed Toshi was when Masaya said his album had been nominated for a Gold Disc Award. That hit Toshi right where it counts. For a musician, that was real respect. Then, right as Toshi seemed interested, Masaya flipped the script. Even with all my success, I still felt empty inside. I had money, fame, everything. But the problem is I had no peace. But at the end of the day, I found happiness. The way I did it was by practicing a program that I created myself. He called it a self-awakening program, and claimed it had been fine-tuned specifically for Toshi. That pitch, combined with his wife's constant emotional nudging, was enough to push Toshi over the edge. He signed up for the program, paying 140,000 yen, which is about $1,000 for the first round of classes. Just 5 days after XJapan officially broke up, Toshi began a 3-day course run by the cult. It started with what they called a sharing session. Each participant had to talk about the most painful experiences in their life. The more miserable your story, the more praise you got from Masaya. When it was Toshi's turn, Masaya took the mic and started to twist his childhood stories. For minor sibling fights, Masaya exaggerated them into years of abuse from his brothers. Strict parenting from his mom, he called it psychological manipulation to turn Toshi into a puppet. Every tiny detail from his past was twisted and blown out of proportion. And slowly, his own sense of reality started to slip. Next came what they called healing. Masaya handed Toshi a blanket and told him to fold it up, pretend it was his family. Then he told him to scream at it, let out all the anger he had buried inside. As Toshi followed the instructions, other cult members circled around him, shouting things like, "Your family ruined your life, they never loved you." Toshi suddenly broke down. He screamed, "I hate my brothers, I hate my mom," then collapsed to the floor. At that point, it wasn't just his memory that were manipulated. Masaya had successfully planted real hatred inside him. Then came step 3, feedback. But this wasn't feedback like in a normal class. This was straight up verbal and emotional abuse along with physical aggression. Other members took turns shoving him, hitting him, and yelling insults, calling him garbage, a selfish freak, a failure. They even started bashing XJapan, calling it a band of egotistical monsters. And the worst part? Kaori, his wife, joined in as well. She looked him in the eyes and said, "You are a parasite, you completely ruined my life." This onslaught of humiliation and violence went on for hours. On the final day, the so-called graduation, Masaya handed Toshi a bouquet of flowers. The crowd applauded, and Toshi, completely broken, cried tears of gratitude. He swore he would change his life, become a man of love, and dedicated himself to saving the world. From that moment forward, he became a full-on believer. He began regularly attending Masaya's courses. Each one cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars. Masaya told him, "People like you, selfish and self-centered, are destroying the planet with your money. If you want to cleanse your soul and save the earth, you need to give your money to me, someone with a pure spirit." And Toshi listened. He gave Masaya millions of yens in income every month, plus tens of millions more from his savings. Within 10 months of getting married, Toshi was completely broke. Because their breakup had been so sudden, XJapan held a farewell concert on December 31st, 1997. Hidei, the guitarist who had strongly opposed Toshi's departure, convinced Yoshiki to invite him back for one final performance. On stage, Toshi looked like his old self, but behind the scenes, he had just endured yet another brutal feedback sessions from the cult. Even under the spotlight, the trauma was still fresh. Midway through the show, Toshi suddenly broke down and burst into tears on stage. But then a single voice cut through the noise and brought him back to reality. It was Hidei. That one moment of clarity would turn out to be their last. Only 5 months after, Hide, XJapan's lead guitarist, one of the band's most beloved figures, took away his own life in his Tokyo apartment. On the day of his funeral, tens of thousands of fans gathered outside the venue, grieving the loss of a rock icon. Toshi also attended to say his final goodbye. But what most people didn't know, that very same day, Toshi was once again subjected to a brutal feedback session by Masaya. Masaya told him, "I saved you, Toshi. If you ever leave me, you will end up just like Hide." In September 1998, rumors started to surface that Toshi had been brainwashed. He quickly went on TV to deny the claim, and even brought Masaya and his wife onto the show to defend them. During the interview, Toshi appeared emotional, insisting they had saved him. But it turned out the entire script had been coached by Masaya. After the show, his wife Kaori scolded him, saying, "Masaya saved your life, and now you are turning on him? You ungrateful bastard. The only thing you should focus on now is making more money for Masaya to spend." Well, just like that, the former frontman of Japan's biggest rock band started going door-to-door selling CDs filled with Masaya's spiritual awakening music. At the same time, he also performed in small public venues, singing the same New Age songs. During shows, he would often cry on stage, overwhelmed with emotion. But while he was on the road trying to earn money for the quote, his wife, Kaori, moved out. She told Toshi that she could no longer live with someone of lower spiritual frequency and want to train full-time with Masaya. As for what that training involved, well, talking about it could get my account banned by YouTube, so I will just leave it there. This bizarre situation went on for years, but then, September 2006, for the first time ever, Toshi began to doubt Masaya. One day, a former XJapan manager reached out and invited Toshi to reunite the band. Toshi immediately turned it down, because Masaya had spent years to tell him rock music was evil, it is a gateway to sin. So Toshi rushed home to proudly tell Masaya about his noble refusal. But to his surprise, Masaya didn't praise him. Instead, when Masaya heard that reunion offer was worth 300 million yen, which is about $2 million, his tone got completely shifted. He told Toshi to take the deal. That moment shattered something inside Toshi. For years, he believed Masaya was a prophet, and the XJapan was evil. But now, he started questioning that. And then, two more things pushed him even further. At the same time, Masaya got sued. Toshi had always seen him as this enlightened, untouchable figure. But in court, he looked small, nervous, mumbled like a guilty man when he was grilled by the lawyer. Another thing is that in order to make more money off him, Masaya started arranging Toshi to attend celebrity dinners. For years, Toshi had cut ties with everyone. His entire world revolved around just Masaya and Kaori. But now, for the first time ever, he was finally getting back to people outside the cult again. Bit by bit, his critical thinking started to come back. And with that, so did the doubts. He started to ask himself, was everything Masaya told me actually a lie? In October 2007, XJapan officially reunited, but all the money Toshi made went straight to the quote. He was only given 500 yen a day, about $3, which is barely enough to eat. On top of that, he still had to endure Masaya's feedback session and was only allowed to sleep 1 to 4 hours a night. It was around this time that he finally started thinking about escaping. In July 2009, Toshi tried to run away. But after a week of hiding, Toshi had an important recording session he absolutely couldn't miss. But when he arrived at the studio entrance, he found Kaori was already there waiting. He forced his way into the recording booth. But during the 12-hour session, he didn't dare ask for help. As soon as he stepped outside, her people dragged him into a car and delivered another brutal feedback session. It went on for 6 hours. It didn't end until 4:30 in the morning. That night crushed whatever hope Toshi had left of escaping. He thought to himself, I will never be free of this quote. But then, something completely unexpected happened that saved Toshi. On October 22, 2009, during a rehearsal, due to extreme sleep deprivation and the relentless feedback sessions, he collapsed. The event organizer rushed him to the hospital. When Toshi regained consciousness and learned that the organizer had contacted his wife, he immediately tried to escape the hospital. Seeing how terrified and determined Toshi was, the organizer hired him at one of his friend's house. 4 days later, Toshi wrote a formal letter cutting ties with Kaori and Masaya. He then hired a lawyer and joined forces with other victims to publicly accuse the quote duo. After investigation, it was revealed that over the span of 12 years, Toshi had been scammed out of at least 1.5 billion yen, about $10 million by Masaya. It also came to light that Kaori had known Masaya a long time before and had been working with him from the very beginning, meaning the entire operation had been carried out with a plan that was designed targeting Toshi. Despite everything, the quote duo never faced any real legal punishment. Toshi was only able to settle the case and recover a fraction of what he had lost. Masaya and Kaori simply changed their names and kept selling their so-called spiritual awakening music like nothing ever happened. But hey, if you ever find yourself in a group with a living god and they want you to cut your contact with the outside world, your best move is to run immediately, because you are very much likely in a cult. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. With that, I will see you in the next one.